What if I told you that a man who survived the unthinkable horrors of Nazi concentration camps discovered the secret to transforming any life circumstance into meaning and purpose? This isn't just another self-help story. This is about the profound wisdom of Viktor Frankl and how his words can literally reshape the way you see your entire existence. Imagine losing everything you've ever loved, your family torn away, your life's work destroyed, your body weakened by starvation and disease, your very identity reduced to a number tattooed on your arm. Most people would break under such circumstances. Most would lose hope entirely. But Viktor Frankl found something else. Something that would change how we understand human resilience forever. Viktor Emil Frankl was an Austrian neurologist, psychiatrist, and Holocaust survivor who spent 3 years in concentration camps, including Auschwitz, Dachau, and Kaufering. Before the war, he was already a respected doctor working on what would become his life's greatest contribution to humanity. But here's what makes his story extraordinary. Instead of being broken by this experience, he used it to develop one of the most influential psychological theories of the 20th century called logotherapy. Frankl believed that our primary drive as humans isn't pleasure, as Freud suggested, or power, as Adler proposed, but the search for meaning. This wasn't just an academic theory born in comfortable university halls. This was wisdom forged in the crucible of humanity's darkest chapter. From the ashes of unimaginable suffering, he emerged with insights that have helped millions find purpose in their pain and direction in their despair. What makes Frankl's approach so powerful is that it wasn't developed despite his suffering, but because of it. He lived every principle he taught. He didn't just theorize about finding meaning in difficult circumstances. He discovered these truths while watching fellow prisoners die around him, while wondering if he would see another sunrise, while clinging to hope when hope seemed impossible. Let's begin with perhaps his most famous and transformative observation. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. This isn't motivational speaking. This is hard-won wisdom from someone who had literally everything stripped away. Think about this for a moment. In the concentration camps, prisoners had everything removed. Their families murdered or taken away, their possessions stolen, their dignity assaulted daily, even their names replaced by numbers. They were reduced to barely surviving skeletons, working until they collapsed, eating scraps that wouldn't feed a small dog. Yet Frankl noticed something remarkable that would challenge everything we think we know about human nature. Some prisoners, despite facing identical horrific conditions, maintained their humanity while others completely broke down. Some shared their last piece of bread with weaker prisoners while others became savage in their desperation. Some maintained hope and dignity while others surrendered to despair. The difference wasn't in their circumstances. Every prisoner faced the same brutal reality. The difference was in their chosen response to those circumstances. Frankl observed prisoners who had given up completely. They would lie in their bunks, refuse to get up, stop eating what little food was available, and within days, they would be dead. But he also witnessed something extraordinary. Prisoners who maintained an inner freedom that no guard could touch, no circumstance could destroy, no suffering could extinguish. These people had discovered what Frankl called the last of human freedoms. This principle applies to every aspect of our daily lives, though most of us will never face such extreme circumstances. When you face a difficult boss who seems determined to make your life miserable, you feel powerless. When you receive a devastating health diagnosis, you feel like a victim. When financial stress threatens to destroy everything you've worked for, you feel trapped. When a relationship that meant everything to you falls apart, you feel broken. But Frankl reminds us that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space might be a split second, or it might be hours or days of reflection, but it's always there. That pause, that moment of choice, that's where transformation happens. It's where you decide whether to react from emotion or respond from wisdom. Consider how this plays out in practical terms. When someone criticizes you harshly, your automatic reaction might be anger, defensiveness, or hurt. Your body floods with stress hormones, your mind races with comebacks or self-doubt, your emotions take control. But in that space between their words and your response, you have options you might never have considered. You can choose curiosity instead of defensiveness. What might I learn from this feedback? You can choose to see their criticism as information about their own pain rather than a verdict on your worth. You can choose growth over protection, understanding over judgment, compassion over retaliation. This isn't about becoming passive or accepting abuse. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending hurtful things don't hurt. It's about recognizing that your response is always, ultimately, yours to choose. And that choice, that space between what happens to you and how you respond, is where your true power lies. Frankl's second transformative insight builds on the first and has become one of his most quoted principles. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. This observation came from watching who survived and who didn't in the camps. It wasn't necessarily the physically strongest who made it through. It wasn't always those with the most resources or connections. Often it was those who had something to live for, something that gave their suffering meaning. During his imprisonment, Frankl observed that prisoners who had something meaningful to live for were more likely to survive the unthinkable conditions. Some lived for the hope of reuniting with loved ones, carrying photos in their minds of wives, children, parents they might see again. Others lived to complete important work, like Frankl himself, who was determined to survive to share his discoveries about human psychology. Still others found meaning in helping fellow prisoners maintain their dignity and hope, becoming sources of strength for those around them. Frankl tells the story of two prisoners who were contemplating suicide, having lost all hope. When he spoke with them, he didn't try to convince them that life was wonderful or that their suffering wasn't real. Instead, he helped each discover what was still expecting them in life. For one, it was a child living in another country who needed his father. For the other, it was a series of books he had begun writing that only he could complete. Neither had a guarantee their suffering would end soon, but both had discovered a why that made their how bearable. But here's where many people misunderstand this life-changing concept. Finding your why isn't about discovering some grand, universal purpose that will solve all your problems overnight. It's not about finding the one perfect calling that will make everything else easy. As Frankl himself said, we should not search for an abstract meaning of life, but for the specific meaning of a person's life at a given moment. Your why is dynamic. It changes and evolves as you do. Today, it might be providing for your family, ensuring their security and happiness. Tomorrow, it might be recovering from illness, focusing all your energy on healing. Next year, it might be creating something beautiful, solving an important problem, or helping others navigate challenges you've overcome. The meaning you need today might be different from the meaning you needed last year, and different from what you'll need tomorrow. The key insight is recognizing that every moment offers the opportunity for meaning. Even in the smallest actions, even in the most difficult circumstances, meaning can be discovered. A kind word to a stranger who looks discouraged. Patience with a difficult child who's testing boundaries. Persistence through a challenging project that could benefit others. Facing an illness with courage that inspires your family. These moments of meaning accumulate into a life of purpose. Sometimes your why is about what you're building. Sometimes it's about what you're overcoming. Sometimes it's about who you're becoming. Sometimes it's about who you're helping to become. The question isn't whether meaning exists in your situation. The question is whether you're willing to look for it. This connects directly to one of Frankl's most counterintuitive and revolutionary insights. Happiness cannot be pursued directly, it must ensue. In our culture completely obsessed with happiness and positive thinking, with endless books and courses promising the secret to happiness, this comes as a profound shock. We're constantly told to follow our bliss, pursue happiness, think positive thoughts, manifest our desires. But Frankl discovered something radically different through his observations of human nature under the most extreme conditions. When we chase happiness directly, when we make happiness our primary goal, it tends to slip away like trying to catch a shadow. The more desperately we pursue it, the more elusive it becomes. But when we focus on serving something larger than ourselves, on finding meaning in our circumstances, on contributing to others' lives in meaningful ways, happiness emerges as a natural byproduct of that purposeful engagement. Think carefully about your happiest moments. Really examine them. Were they when you were directly pursuing pleasure or happiness for its own sake? Or were they when you were fully engaged in something meaningful, when you forgot about yourself completely because you were absorbed in purpose? Maybe it was helping someone through a crisis where you lost track of time because you were so focused on their needs. Maybe it was creating something beautiful, solving a challenging problem that required all your skills and attention, or connecting deeply with another person in a moment of complete presence. In those moments, happiness wasn't your goal. It was the natural result of meaningful engagement. You weren't thinking about whether you were happy. You were too busy being fully alive, fully present, fully engaged in something that mattered. Happiness came not from chasing it, but from losing yourself in meaning. This principle has profound implications for how we approach our goals, dreams, and daily choices. Instead of asking what will make me happy, we might ask what gives my life meaning right now. Instead of pursuing only what feels good in the moment, we pursue what matters in the long term. Instead of avoiding all discomfort, we embrace the discomfort that comes with growth, challenge, and meaningful contribution. Consider how this applies to relationships. When we enter relationships asking what this person can do to make us happy, those relationships often disappoint us. But when we enter relationships asking what we can contribute, how we can serve this person's growth and well-being, how we can create something meaningful together, those relationships flourish. The happiness comes as a result of the meaning we create together, which brings us to perhaps Frankl's most challenging insight. Suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. This doesn't mean we should seek out suffering or that all suffering is good, but it recognizes that some suffering is inevitable in human life. And when that unavoidable suffering can be given meaning, it transforms from pure pain into something that can contribute to our growth and character. Frankl witnessed this transformation repeatedly. Prisoners who could find meaning in their suffering, who saw it as a test of their character or an opportunity to demonstrate love and courage, were not broken by their experience. Instead, they were refined by it. They became examples of human dignity that inspired others, even in the darkest circumstances. In your own life, this might mean viewing your struggles not as random cruelty, but as opportunities for growth. A difficult relationship might be teaching you patience and compassion. A career setback might be redirecting you towards something more aligned with your values. A health challenge might be showing you what truly matters most. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending bad things are good. It's about finding ways that unavoidable difficulties can contribute to your development as a human being. Frankl also observed that those who fought for the highest human values were those who suffered most. This isn't to glorify suffering, but to recognize that often our deepest wisdom and strongest character emerge from our most challenging experiences. The people who become our greatest teachers, our most compassionate leaders, our most inspiring examples, often carry scars from significant struggles. Consider the activists who fight for justice because they experienced injustice, the counselors who help others heal because they've walked through their own healing journey, the leaders who demonstrate authentic courage because they faced real fear. Their suffering wasn't wasted, it was transformed into wisdom and service that helps others. This transformation happens through love, which Frankl described as the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of their personality. Love, in Frankl's understanding, isn't just an emotion, but a way of seeing. When we truly love someone, we see not just who they are, but who they can become. We see their potential, their worth, their deepest essence beyond their current struggles or failures. This kind of love is transformative not just for the one loved, but for the one loving. When we choose to see the best in others, when we believe in their potential even when they don't believe in themselves, we participate in calling forth their highest possibilities. And in doing so, we become more than we were before. Even in the concentration camps, Frankl observed moments of profound love and beauty. Prisoners sharing their last piece of bread with someone weaker. Acts of kindness that seemed impossible given the circumstances. People maintaining their dignity and helping others maintain theirs. These weren't naive optimists. These were people who understood that love remains a choice even in the most hostile environments. This brings us full circle to Frankl's central message: everything can be taken from us except the ability to choose how we respond to our situation. Life never ceases to have meaning, and this infinite meaning of life includes suffering and dying, failure and despair, as well as joy and success. The question isn't whether difficult things will happen to you. They will. The question is how you will respond when they do. Will you respond from your highest self or your lowest? Will you let circumstances dictate your character, or will your character transform your circumstances? Will you see obstacles as evidence that life is against you, or as opportunities to discover what you're really made of? Frankl's insights remind us that we are not victims of our circumstances, but authors of our response. We are not prisoners of our past, but architects of our future. We are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we choose to meet what happens to us. In every moment, in every breath, in every choice, we have the opportunity to find meaning, to choose our attitude, to respond from love rather than fear. This is the gift that Viktor Frankl offers us, not the promise that life will be easy, but the assurance that life can always be meaningful. Not the guarantee that we'll avoid suffering, but the tools to transform that suffering into wisdom, compassion, and strength. These aren't just pretty words or philosophical concepts. They are practical tools for living a life of purpose and dignity, regardless of your circumstances. They are invitations to discover the meaning that exists in this very moment, the choice that awaits your decision, the love that's yours to give. If these insights resonated with you today, I invite you to subscribe to our channel and share this message with someone who might need to hear it. Because as Viktor Frankl showed us through both his words and his life, meaning is always available to those who have the courage to seek it.